We were 3 girls following, and at that point it was like, you don't even have a child. You don't even have a child. We were regarded like no children, because we could hear them tell mom, how can you even own land, you don't have a son? I know of some families that were chased away from their home because the woman only gave birth to girls.
I'm the first female lady to be a chief in Kogon sublocation itself. So there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot of struggle here and here, and at one point the community were like, they cannot be led by a woman.
And Corona said, decide me Adwadera.
When my husband passed on, and now that I was married in Suba, there are certain cultural rights that I was supposed to go through as a woman. So if I went to a household where there's a man, I sit on the floor. Why? I have not been inherited and my husband passed on.
I would say I grew up knowing that women can never own land, can never own any property.
Patriarchy is a major challenge because patriarchy suits a certain gender. So the status quo then ensures that you'll protect your status and you'll protect your privileges.
We do have champions on the ground who are able to train other people after they get their knowledge. So we'll be offering a supportive role.
They changed me from that crying Caroline to that Caroline that is now a warrior that would go out and, I'll go for what I want and for what women want.
Actually, Kelin has made me to walk like an armed soldier. I now walk here very bravely. I'm not afraid because I have Silaha with me.
And I am glad today I've touched so many lives, such that even if I die today, it's not even my profession, not the successes in my profession, but this one is now dear to me, the lives that I've touched.
Women owning land is not common or fully accepted in many communities in Kenya. This contributes to the practice of disinheriting wives and widows, leaving families devastated when husbands and fathers die. Working together to support husbands and fathers in protecting their wives and children's future through land and property ownership and inheritance is the way to go. This will help to prevent conflict between husbands and wives, lead to peace of mind, family harmony, and community development. The Securing Your Family's Future campaign has taken into account the fact that both men and women have a part to play in contributing to peace and harmony in families. Through this campaign, Kelin has trained over 400 men and women in Kisumu and Homa Bay counties and equipped them with information to address issues of inheritance, land and property ownership. The women you will meet here are bold, empowered, experienced, and have been actively involved in the key actions of the SYFF campaign, making a difference in their communities. They will inspire you to join the movement in Kenya and beyond.
My name is Caroline Oyumbo. I'm a teacher by profession, and apart from teaching, I'm also a paralegal and therefore a human rights defender. My husband passed on in 2003. So when my husband passed on, and now that I was married in Suba, there are certain cultural rights that I was supposed to go through as a woman. Some of these cultural practices were against my faith. They were against my belief. They were demeaning because I was required to be inherited by somebody that I didn't know. somebody that was just brought to me, you know, after the death. And you know, there was a lot of cultural ties that were there, you know, before you are inherited. So if I went to a household where there's a man, I sit on the floor. Why? I have not been inherited and my husband passed on. And so what really hurt me most is the fact that I was being forced to be inherited. And I can remember that day very well. I was told by my father-in-law to go home with the children, because actually the clothes to my late husband were still in my custody. So I was told that they were supposed to be given away, which I had no problem with, because after all, where was I going to take those clothes? So when I went home, it was evening, and my father-in-law came to my house and told me, you know what, we are going to have some guests and I'm requesting you to help your mother-in-law to prepare some food for them. Which was also very unusual, because whenever my mother-in-law had guests, she would come to me and tell me that I need your help. And sometimes it wasn't that she had to come, it was something that I could just see, that their guest, let me go and give a helping hand. So I didn't decline. I went, and as I was now talking to my mother-in-law, I realized that she was not herself. Something was disturbing her. By then the guest had come, and then, you know, she told me, have you greeted the guest? I said, yes, I've greeted them. And have you talked to so and so? Then I asked, why? They were guests, I've greeted them, and we can see we are still preparing meals for them. But you know what? There's something that I want to tell you, and I beg your understanding. You see, that so and so that I'm talking about, he's going to sleep in your house tonight. I felt like, no, this one is now, they have now overstepped their boundaries. The HIV prevalence here is real. It's real. You cannot just go and get into a relationship without knowing who you are getting into. And then the customs also demand that that person, if he were to inherit me that night for the first time after the death of my husband, then no precaution was going to be taken. It wasn't that I was going to stay with that one forever. No, that one was just to cleanse me because I was dirty. I was dirty because my husband died. Then after that cleansing, now one of the brother-in-laws will now come to inherit. Why? He still wants to maintain the family name, and he also wants to maintain the family property because they will be under him. So I left whatever I was doing. I can remember that I was unscaling some fish. I left whatever I was doing, went, locked myself in my house, and I really cried. I cried like it's that day that I saw my loss. I realized that I was amongst people that were not going to understand me. I was amongst people that were going to lower my dignity at every given opportunity. And I really felt so bad. And it even attracted the sub-chief by then. Today he's a chief. And you know, he came because his home was just in the neighborhood. So he came, what is the problem? So I thought in him, I had my security. So I opened up to him. Still under lock and key. I still could not open my door. So when I told him, you know, and you know, I believe that because we also shared the same faith, he was from my own denomination, I thought he would understand. To my dismay, what he told me, it's like I was done. You know, these are things that we do. Why don't you just do it, and then tomorrow, you know, you'll forget about that man, you can come back, we can rebaptize you again. With him, I put him off. I told him, no, if you want me to do it, yes, I will do. But not with him. Let us do it with you, so that tomorrow we are taken back for baptism. Something that I knew that as a church elder he would not allow. So he walked and left us. And he told me, I remember him telling my father-in-law, that is your home, see how to deal with it. I refused to be inherited because, one, it violated my right. I have a right to choice. When I chose my husband, I married him because I loved him. I did not marry him because he was chosen for me or because I was coerced. So the following morning, I woke up, picked my children, and off. I could not have left with anything because that would have brought a lot of chaos. Because you know, some of these things, they do it so that they also have access to whatever was left behind. So I just decided to live with my children and pick my life from there. So I came here, I came to Mbita, and I decided that I was not going back to that home. And that is how I bought this parcel that we are in. This is something that had been going on for some time. And I felt that it had to take just one person to put a stop to it. So I wanted to be that person to initiate that change. So much as the pain was also inbuilt, the pain was right inside me, but I also saw it as an opportunity to rescue any other woman that would be forced to go through this barbaric culture.
Because many of these rights issues, some of them are undercover, some of them are the normal norms. So people don't see them like a problem, but they really affect women and girls. I know of some families that were chased away from their home because the woman only gave birth to girls. Then you go to your parents' place, your parents sends you back to your husband's place. It's like, with these children, we can't take care of you, you have to go back. So where do you go at that point? Where was she to go? Where does she belong in this world at that time?
So the violations which we see start right from where we work with children in schools, where there's discrimination of who is a monitor, who is a prefect in terms of leadership. You tend to find that girls were usually made monitors during our time. So, and then boys were made to be prefects. So it meant that the issues of leadership of women and girls is instilled right from that particular stage.
There are some that were also culturally perpetrated. Like, for example, you'll find that if I'm staying with my in-law that is married to my sister, and then my sister happens to pass on, then it is the tradition that I then step into the house of my sister, get married to the husband so that I take care of the children. And sometimes you find that the girls that were going through this were very young. Some were hardly 18, some were even as young as 15. And they end up marrying men that are older than them, men that sometimes are even HIV positive. And I felt that no, something is not right. Then the way women were perceived also got my attention, because I'm a Luo married in Suba. So when I came to Suba, I got a totally different culture, where the woman mostly was to be seen and not to be heard. And you know, beating up a woman was almost normal.
The women are not always ready to report the matter to the police, because we believe, or our culture believes, that you cannot report your husband when he beats you.
We see more reporting in urban areas, but less reporting in rural communities, because also some of the challenges we have in rural communities are the structures or even the supportive systems, which then ensure that these reports can also be done. So in rural communities, we have very high levels of violence, which sometimes we have seen even femicide, which is the same as what we see in urban areas. So part of the push which we are doing even as an institution with other partners is to look at how to set up gender units within rural communities, which are similar to what have been set up in urban communities, so that we can collect data, which can also show us the level of violence, which often goes unreported.
As a child, I've grown up seeing women suffer. I was brought up by a single mom, and that brings out what we went through, being brought up by a single mom. My mom didn't have a right to own land in her place where she's born, and she wasn't married then. We were 3 girls following, and at that point it was like, you don't even have a child. You don't even have a child. We were regarded like no children, because we could hear them tell mom, how can you even own land, you don't have a son? I would say I grew up knowing that women can never own land, can never own any property.
When you give women right to and access to property, then there's so much they can be able to do with it. For example, in most communities in Kenya, you'll find that it is the women who farm this land. It is the women who till this land. And then at the end of the day, not to say that men never do most of the work, they do, yes, but it is the women who put the land to use. And that was what we are hoping for. Women can be able to access land, and they can be able to put it to use.
Part of what we have to tell women is that understand what the culture was meant to be, and do not diminish the stature of that particular household because that was the lineage which was left for your children.
Even if you look at the original culture, a lot has been changed. It is just greed and being insensitive, where a clique of men think that they can now control the woman just because dowry was paid over her and have their way. It is greed, nothing but greed. The original Suba culture values women. The Subas, they call a woman mkazi. Mkazi means a helper. So a helper is not a slave. It is somebody that is out to help.
Patriarchy is a major challenge because patriarchy suits a certain gender. So the status quo then ensures that you'll protect your status and you'll protect your privileges.
The elephant that we are dealing with is the gender boxes. The things that we grew up knowing, but we don't even understand where they came from, but we are following them.
It is the perceived enclosure in which you have to conform to culture, whether you like it or not.
Initially, when it started, when I joined the work in 2016, it was a big task for us or for the community, because I'm the first female lady to be a chief in Kogon sublocation itself. So there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot of struggle here, and at one point the community were like, they cannot be led by a woman. Even at now, some of them cannot come to us for the services. They prefer to go to the chief man rather than to a female chief.
We always say that for you to be able to address an issue, you have to go to the root cause of the challenge that you have. One of them is that we can say that the issues of violence can be caused by the way you are brought up and socialized. Because your socialization will also make you think that you are supposed to behave a certain way to become what society defines you as. So for example, how do we raise boys or how do we raise girls? So part of the conversations we are having is that boys are raised in a certain way for certain communities. You're supposed to be behaving in a certain manner. If you don't behave in that certain manner, then you're considered weak. So sometimes you're pushed by your socialization to behave in a certain manner. For girls, you are socialized to believe that you're supposed to be good so that you can make a good wife, for example. So what do good women do? So those are part of it, is that you will sit in those spaces whether you're being violated because society expects you to be good and to be in this nice relationship for you to be a good woman.
So women go through all kinds of violations. So number one, we have to recognize that, for example, women for a long time have not been able to own land. They have been able to access and use it, but not to be able to own it. So you find that most of the women that we work with, especially the widows, they don't get to access their land and property rights because of the kind of cultures that we have. So if we have repugnant cultures that, for example, within the cultural structures do not promote for women to be able to have ownership of land, then it means that these women are put at a risk in terms of their properties being taken away, and usually they do not know how to be able to secure these properties. We do have champions on the ground who are able to train other people after they get their knowledge. So we'll be offering a supportive role.
When I met Kelin, trust me, I felt I was late to meet them. It was like, have you ever met someone and you're like, I wish I met you 10 years. They've changed my life. The knowledge I've gotten from Kelin has put me at a different level, because it has helped me to understand that even some of the beliefs that we believe in, trust me, some of them are not true. Some of them are just there to hurt you, not to make you any better. But again, we are not conflicting what people believe in, but we are trying to put reality and facts on the table.
Actually, Kelin has made me to walk like an armed soldier. I now walk here very bravely. I'm not afraid because I have Silaha with me. So if I walk with my books. If you ask, I explain it well. I've seen some changes in people.
It is through Kelin that I felt empowered enough to fight my battle And as you can see, there's nowhere that I've mentioned that they came in to arbitrate on my behalf. I did it on my own, but through the empowerment that I got from them. Why? When I went to that training, I found that it was possible. So I started from there. So that is the greatest impact, that they changed my life. They changed me from that crying Caroline to that Caroline that is now a warrior, that would go out and, you know, I'll go for what I want and for what women want. Today, as I am talking, I'm one of the facilitators.
It makes sense for us to be able to have women who are empowered, and in that way they will not be victims of violations. Because, for example, if the widows were understanding of their rights with regard to, for example, inheritance laws, then they wouldn't be disinherited. So that is what we are hoping for, to have more women who are empowered, who can be able to claim their rights. So, for example, if they're violated, they can be able to use the land management structures and other structures that we have at the sub-county level, at the county level, to be able to access justice, so that we get the wheels of justice turning.
At times I always say that I'm a lucky chief to engage with Kelin, because anytime I want to solve a case, whatever I've captured from Kelin rings in my mind, and it gives me an easy time to solve a problem.
I felt empowered. I came back here and did not sit. The next Monday, I remember it was a holiday, I left for home. I did not go back to the homestead, but I went to the DO's. So I went to the DO's office in Suba South. I went and told him my predicament, and I told him I cannot access my land, I cannot access my property because of ABCD. This is what they want me to do. And that was the stepping stone. He wrote a letter to the chief, the very chief, that very sub-chief. And he told the chief that I want this thing resolved and I want a report. So I took the letter to him, we came, we talked, still there was nothing to agree upon. I went back to the DO and he came, believe you me, he came to the home. We talked and he gave instruction on what he wanted to be done. And as I'm talking now, I've gone back and I have a home there. Over 10 acres and I have a home there. So when I succeeded and was able to make peace, then I decided that no woman that will, no woman that will come into contact with me will suffer the same. That is where I started. And I am glad today I've touched so many lives, such that even if I die today, it's not even my profession, not the successes in my profession, but this one is now dear to me, the lives that I've touched.
So most of the women that we work with are our widow champions. So for example, the women who had gone through violations, their cases have been resolved, and therefore they are able to be resettled back to their homes. So those are some of the women that we work with. But we also work with women leaders at the community level. For example, we have paralegals who help us in terms of identification of cases. So it's very important for them to go through this course, because it also gives them a legal background and both the social issues, so that they can be able to better do their job. We also have community health advocates who we have been working with for over 3 years now, and they also do a lot of support with regard to the cases that we have at the courts within the sub-county level. We also work with other women who are part of support groups, but not necessarily widows, because we understand that when it comes to women's property rights, widows is one sect, but we can have women with disability facing property rights issues. We can have married women facing property rights issues, because recently we had the issues in court regarding the matrimonial property and how, for example, the rights that a woman has within a marriage and how they can be able to claim these rights. For example, in case of separation, in case of a divorce, and then now we realize that married women themselves need empowerment so that they can be able to, for example, be able to secure their future.
One thing that was very clear, most women thought for you to own land, you have to go to the police, you have to fight, you have to create a scene. The training I was taken through was able to take me through on how to communicate, how to dialogue, how to negotiate things, and how to get what you really deserve. We took about 3 weeks training. It was a long time training, and after we came from there, I started also empowering other women. So the training was not only beneficial to me, but it was an eye-opener for me to also pick it up and also cascade the information to other people.
Every time you become a widow, if there is nobody on your back, I'm telling you, the in-laws are going to snatch you that land whether you like it or not. Where we help them so much, there's a place where we always catch the in-laws or the grandfathers when they come for the succession services. For us to realize that these women are being denied of their land rights and properties during succession, these widows are they're not always being involved. By the time you're doing this succession, you're always there to help the widows.
You see, when you train someone or when you empower someone, you first live by example. It starts with me. It is very difficult for them to cascade the same issue if yourself you're chased away from your own house. How do you tell people you own your own land? So it has to start with me. It has to start with them. Then it is from that you'll be able to tell another woman, see, this is my title deed in my name or with my husband's name. This is my marriage certificate. I did it. You can do it. So by training them is we empower them. Example or charity begins with them as we cascade down. And we also have champions. Some of the people, as we speak right now, some women have gotten their title deeds and they own it. They own their lands from the training that we took them through.
And I am happy because we had a WhatsApp wall. I can see they are doing a good job. Why? We are getting cases that they are dealing with. Because we still have a link with them such that in case there are others whose rights have been violated, then we can still reach out and help. There are others that will even require litigation, and the litigation, Kelin does the litigation for us by looking for pro bono lawyers and the rest. And then the ones that will also require arbitration will still arbitrate for alternative dispute resolution. So we can see even from the wall that they are doing some good work as champions. So our major work was to make them champions of women, land and property rights.
I've trained more than 60 women. More than 60 women in different sub-counties. Most women alluded to the fact that whenever they started the issue of land and property rights issues, it was either a fight or you are chased from home. Some women said it is not a topic to be discussed. They could not even think of starting to discuss issue of land ownership with their husbands. There was no way they would even start talking to their husband that even girls should be given land. So they were right in the box. I realized the box I was in, the women were right in the box. Like the beliefs were so deeply entrenched that they were not seeing any way. There was no open door. There was no window for even to whisper that women could own land. And that is what we unpacked with the women.
We have 200 women who are taken through the Securing Your Family's Future course, but we do have 500 women who we are working with through the women support groups, and then we do have 30 widow champions in Kisumu and 30 widow champions in Homa Bay that we are working with actively in order for us to be able to ensure the access to justice processes. So basically we could be talking about 760 women that we have worked with over the last 3 years, but that is just the 3 years because Kelin has been here for over 9 years. So if you count, for example, up to the women that we have trained so far since the beginning of the Cultural Structures project, we could be going to over 1,500 women because we do have another 456 whose cases have been successfully resolved by the elders. We do have over 76 whose cases have been taken to court for succession. We do have others who we are assisting in other land-related issues such as conducting searches, green cards, among that. So the numbers keep increasing, but there are 1,500 plus. Within the Securing Your Family's Future project, we have again engaged 200 men, 100 in Homa Bay, 100 in Kisumu, for us to be able to influence their change with regard to how they view the culture and for them to be able to understand the law as they violate these women. And we do work with a network of over 100 elders who are men, so that they can be able to continuously be able to recruit other elders who are assisting in the access to justice processes.
And now it is changing. The attitude and the resistance we had is changing. We have the community leaders supporting us. We have the opinion leaders supporting us. And even the women are starting to see the change.
So Kelin works with cultural structures. Cultural structures are basically the elders, the Luo Council of Elders to be specific at the community level. What we've done with the elders is we've trained them on the law, we've trained them on the process of alternative dispute resolution mechanism, we've trained them on documentation of cases. So we work with these elders to ensure that these women get access to justice at the community level, and also we ensure that the elders do have a partnership with stakeholders at the ground, for example, the court users committee. so that they can be able to, for example, be able to share their challenges, and then of course document their cases and to be able to share them for implementation. But working with the elders has been a good way for us to deal with these challenges, because the elders speak to both parties. So they speak to, for example, the perpetrators, and they understand them from their perspective. Is when they speak to the women, is when they bring the two parties together. So it's not from a dogmatic position where we're just coming in and saying this woman has the right excuses.
If someone comes to me that his or her right has been violated, so I have to follow the routes that I also followed when my right was violated, to see some results of change.
Kadak ka to asebedo kod shida kaka ng'ama miyo, to ne onge kama nyalo dhiye mondo ayud konyruok. To na dhi biro kokwongo nayudo shida chien, gima ne koro kela shida mar ariyo mar wach lo mondo Eunice Adhiambo kelo konya. Ne abedo gi tungni mar dak gi jaoda. Nogik thuolo ma wuon gi madho kong'o, onge kwe, kendo ni riemba samoro kodgi nyithinda madongo go. Nogik kama koro muko oda mondo nyithindo gi adhi godo turwa. Nabiro ir Eunice. Eunice nokonya mowuoyo koda ka nyithinda gi be koro ywak dwa wuok mondo gidhi giwe skul. Koro kano gik lwenji lo, dawa en ng'ama pache ok ler ahinya. Wuode ma jaoda no be kong'orano, en ng'ama ok ni ofuodhi skul to kong'orane. Osebedo kokonya ma nyithinda, an gi nyithinda 4, achiel be nie university mar adek, machogo be nie form 2. Aneno ka oda obedo gi chung' kod ber nikech Eunice. Nikech an koro nase decide ni adwa dera. Eunice puonja. Aneno kaka en ng'ama osebedo kokonya. Kogik lo, to nabiro ir Eunice mondo bonyalo konya ma ane kaka wayudo lobo mimayowa. Eunice na advisor moora ir chief. Kanu adhi ir chief, noyudo ka ng'ano nigi pesa, en ng'ama nigi pesa e Ndhiwa ka. Chief nonyisa ni kaka wadhier gi kaka wanyalo makwecha koka nyithindo dhi skul. Chwora borano onge nolal Nairobi chon. Lobno ka binyalo yalo gi ng'ama nigi pesa. Bahati mzuri Eunice nonyisa ni title deed be wan go, nopenja. Tanyisa ni title deed pok wakao, to entie en ka land register. Eunice no make na ways motera nyaka ka land register mwakao title deed wabura bedo go. Kwasebedo go, oora ir chief. Chief nokokonyowa nikech japesa ni nonyiewo chief. Notama mochako temo na matek en Eunice okelo, mochako tera ir Dio. Dio kanu adhire, nokwaneno kwayudo konyruok maber. Nochako ting'a en owuono ka dawa bende koro ok nyal. Nochako tera ka land register. Jo land register nomiyowa AOB ni mano ng'ama koro a criminal case. Kanu wabiro nwadhi mondiknwa barua, koro waling' warito barua mondo mi luongwa court. Nomanyo na ng'ama nyalo konya kaka advocate. Ene mano wuoyo gi advocate, mokawa gi advocate magitero case e court. Ma case no sani nie court, wasebedo kwalose, joka stranded nikech gisiko ne gimanyo documents kipenjogi ka judge wuoyo. To osebedo kiyanya ni babro nyalo. To an gi chir nikech title deed an go, gimora amora an go, nyaka green card nakia gimiluongo ni green card kichako wach lo. Eunice emanokawo koda wuoth motera mwadhi e green card mwayudo number 1 nikech ne seche go wakia kata number lobwane nikech nwakia.
I know with the work of the community, if you are afraid, you cannot do it, you cannot manage. But you keep on You keep on, even though you pass through some challenges, but you keep on going, somebody will understand you.
By the time you bring them together and this woman, you'd have gone, in fact even the soles of your shoes would have been worn out, because it is a journey.
So change takes time. By the time you change a cultural practice and a traditional belief, it means that you are changing mindsets, but certain households are changing. So you're looking at what has been done, and you are seeing even within certain spaces where there was a lot of issues on land, many women are now starting to get their title deeds and ownership of those particular spaces. But it means that there must be consistency. So for us, we say it is one day at a time and one household at a time. Whether it takes 100 years, it is that amount of time which we have to take for the community mindset to shift.
I have 4 children, and the girls, they stay in their own houses, but within this compound. The father said they should be independent, and the way you do a home for a boy, when you do your home for a boy and they have their Simba, those houses they live in, within your compound, the same thing is happening to my girls. So my girl is also in her Simba, the same way as the boy, and they stay there. They come home, yes, but they're in their houses within the home.
We are getting into the dissemination stage where we are hoping that we're going to have a network of women who are champions, who can be able to bring change with regard to access to justice at the community level, because now we are training more people at the sub-county level, and we are hoping that this results to, for example, more cases being reported because they're being identified, or fewer cases being reported because people have somehow decreased the violations. But then, apart from that, we are looking into getting, for example, more women getting title deeds, more women and men going to register their property, more women and men jointly registering the land that they own in order to prevent future disputes. We are hoping for more women and men writing wills and including their daughters and sons in those wills concerning equality when it comes to children.
One of the things which you're looking at is that, can we share this conversation through radio, for example? If you're able to share these conversations through radio, it reaches many, many people. For the younger people, in the terms of the social media spaces, how we are engaging younger people to have the same conversation through the social media spaces, because the culturalization of younger people is what is enhancing the discrimination. So you grow up with wrong cultural beliefs, and the practices which are wrong is what we then continue to the next generation.
I would advise them, the fellow women, not to be afraid and to try to get more from other resources so that they can be well equipped and know what to do at the right time.
So we should also tell men to engage in protection of the rights of women. It's not women's purview to, they're human rights. So women's rights are human rights. So who protects human rights? It's everybody. We are supposed to be protecting human rights, but we are telling women to be very persistent and assertive in claiming their rights, because we talked about rights come with responsibilities. If you don't claim them, you will never access them.
We have very beautiful laws in Kenya, but seeing them implemented on the ground would be great, because at the end of the day we have laws that are recognizing that women have a right to property, laws that are recognizing the rights within a marriage, laws that are recognizing equality before a marriage, during the marriage and after the marriage. But when it comes to the situation on the ground, it seems a little bit different. I'm also hoping to see women who are empowered and are able to claim their rights and are sitting within the spaces that we have in order to support women and even men to be able to claim their property rights.